Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GoldFish Report. This is our ExoPolitics Roundtable, Part 4, Everything is Energy. As Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein said, everything is energy. And what does that really mean? And we're going to have a conversation with some very, very special guests today to discuss energy in all its forms. If everything is energy, then we can talk about everything in terms of energy somehow. And although we might not get to talking about everything, we're going to talk about some of the most important issues that pertain to energy, that pertain to our bodies, that pertain to the energy around us, and how to harness it, use it, and live a different life. So I'd first like to welcome our friend, the GoldFish Report, a returning guest, Randy Kramer, Captain Randy Kramer. Thanks for joining us, Randy.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I also like to welcome another returning guest and a friend of the GoldFish Report, Audrey Ewis. Thanks, Audrey, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, our returning guest, our friend, Duncan O'Finian. Thank you so much for joining us, Duncan.
Hey there, thanks.
And of course, our gracious host, the Ambassador, the Red Dragon family. Welcome, Mr. Ambassador.
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone to the program again.
We're going to be talking about energy, and each of our guests are really experts in the area of energy and understanding the physics of energy and all different aspects of energy. And I'm going to be directing questions to some guests, but everyone seems to have a very general knowledge of these areas. So I'm welcoming the guests to please ask each other questions and feel free to, comment respectfully. Feel free to comment and add to something if you feel that you have an area of expertise to do that. And I think what the interesting thing to start with is that we all know that there's free energy in the world. We know that Nikola Tesla had created this. And let me start with Randy. Randy, what happened and why don't we have free energy? What happened with Nikola Tesla that we don't seem to be able to, bear the fruits of his inventions?
Wow, that's wow. I mean, as an answer, we could talk about the entire 20th century dynamic between industrialists, inventors, the marketization of copper wiring and electricity through copper wires, and the war of the currents. And I mean, we could have this whole long-ass conversation about that. And I don't want to. So I'll try and sum it up more quickly than that and say that there's always been a conflict between the notion or the technology of a certain ability to produce energy or create power versus other people's notions of wealth, control over physical bodies to do labor. And you can go back to, who was the first guy who actually invented the first steam engine, which actually goes back to Alexander the Great or something. I mean, it was before it was ever really put into common use. And it was basically like a little ball with two little hands on it that when you heat it up, it would spin around. And the comment that Alexander the Great made to the inventor who made it was like, look, I made this little thing, look at all this out of steam. And I was like, yeah, but what would we do with all the slaves? And so right from that point, you have this conflict of interest. So essentially, if I want to simplify that answer, conflict of interest. And every time you have a conflict of interest over industry, money, or labor or anything else, then there's going to be an issue over what's going to win out. And so unfortunately, the best ideas have not always won over conflict of interest. And the entire 20th century was about industrialization and power and I mean, both physical and just energetic to make things. So, I mean, coal and gas and petroleum and solar and all of these things going back and forth the entire century. There's a whole history about it. Solar power had a huge upswing in the 1950s, huge. Houses and buildings all over Southern California and Florida were being peppered with solar panels and solar water heaters, and it was a huge, huge, huge thing in the 50s. And the coal and gas companies got together and said, we need to lower our prices, and basically dropped their prices in the bucket and killed it. So, the electric car got killed, I mean, there's all these things that they come along and then someone, stabs it in the heart with a knife because there's a conflict of interest. And luckily, you know, we're at the point where there's just not much of an alternative anymore. So they really, more than there being a conflict of interest, even the people who don't want free energy kind of have this metaphorical gun to their head, and in some cases a literal gun to their head, saying, this is going to happen because we have no choice or we're all going to die. So conflict of interest is the short answer, and the long answer is a lot of bodies and numbers to try and go back and forth and make that decision, which is never easy.
So bureaucracy sounds like. Ambassador, you had your hand up. Thanks, Randy. That was the answer. I mean, that was definitely a very great answer. I know it was a complicated one, but you handled it brilliantly. Thanks, Randy. Ambassador,
I do what I can.
Ambassador, did you have a comment?
No, actually I didn't. So I don't know why my hand came up,
Your hand was
because my hands was in my pockets, so I didn't even touch the screen. But I will let everyone speak, and after they've been speaking,
okay.
I will just talk. Let everyone come on. Thank you very much.
Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know how that happened on the computer. But so what you're saying is, that there was conflicts of interest, and I think the story goes, J.P. Morgan basically said, what's that famous quote? J.P. Morgan said, if I can't put it in a box and a meter and then put a meter on it, then I don't, then we're not going to do it. I can't do it. And so he stopped funding Nikola Tesla at some point. And so, there goes, humanity in terms of the ability to have free energy. But and just for the record, to our viewers, we did invite Cobra to participate in this roundtable, and Cobra's not joining us today, and we might have had a mixed communication in the date in our schedule, and I'm sure we will figure that out and have Cobra return another time. And you never know, maybe he'll pop in. But just for the record, we did invite Cobra. He accepted, and he's lost in hyperspace or something. I'm not sure where he is. But anyway, but Randy, let me just follow up with you. Is it hard to harness this energy? Is this a part of the problem, or is it just like you're saying?
No, it's actually not that hard. As I've come to understand it a little bit better, which I'm not going to say it's my area of expertise at all, but I do have enough of a physical engineering background to understand, I think, the skeleton of it enough to understand it, to say that, no, it's not hard. In fact, to say it's not rocket science is kind of accurate. In some cases, rocket science is more complicated. The precision with which you have to have with rocket science, and the no margin of error, and the highly volatile chemicals and so forth, actually make rocket science a more dangerous, more difficult thing to do than to build a magnetogravitic propulsion system. So it turns out, it's not that hard, and it's really just a matter of it being so. If you're a traditional engineer, you're not going to get any kind of the outside of the box thinking to consider how this stuff works. And so, but the first time someone sits down and shows you a schematic or pops one open, you go, oh, that's not so hard. I can see how that works.
Right. I'm going to show a little video here, just real quick.
Oh, sure.
A 13-year-old boy who's invented a Tesla, and actually, I don't know. We have some pretty talented people here who might even know if this is a reincarnation of Nikola Tesla, but he's adorable.
It's not. I know the reincarnation of Nikola Tesla. He's an older guy. He's a private inventor, and that's not him. But anyway, go ahead.
All right, Randy, thanks.
No worries.
Real-life Dexter's laboratory. Yeah, they said. A whiz kid with a very powerful idea. Max Lahin shares his story in tonight's Someone to Know. Do you think a 13-year-old could change the world? Well, this one might change your mind. Dressed in his lab coat.
Yeah, I wear this fairly often.
Max Lahin sits in his parents' old boiler room, converted into a lab.
I am in a boiler room right now.
And he ponders the future often.
The future that I imagine is future, frankly, that we all imagine.
He wants to make the world a better place. And to do that, you need one single thing.
If you got energy, you got power, you have everything.
So to solve this problem, a few months ago, Max took the matter into his own hands and created this electromagnetic harvester out of a coffee can some wire, 2 coils.
Nice.
It cost me $14.
The harvester radio wave.
14 bunks worth of garbage and puts it together. See what I'm saying? It's not complicated.
This wire takes the energy from the air. Down below here, we turn it from AC into DC.
So we take the device outside and wrap up Max's brother into a string of LED lights.
Bing!
A $14 invention was able to do that.
Nice.
So imagine the same harvester on a scale 20 times larger.
I'm very proud of him.
Max's family is
So this is what we're talking
Nice.
about. I mean, how amazing is this boy? I mean, give him so much credit for, what a great scientist. He's gonna, what a great mind already. What do you?
And there's lots of those kids all over the world right now that, their parents aren't necessarily getting them TV interviews because, they're concerned that that's not a good idea for their child necessarily to be on television. But I think we're going to see a lot more of these really brilliant kids making stuff. But the basic science and technology of some of these things is not that hard. And so, yeah, you can kind of wrap some coils around some tubes in a coffee can and sort of throw it together.
Well, let me ask Audrey to come in and kind of what did you think about that, Audrey? I mean, it's so simple, yet, why can't we have free energy here? What do you think?
Well, everything does exist as energy, and when you understand this concept, when you realize that everything, no matter what state of matter it is in, is made of the same thing, anything can be harvested from any source. It's just a matter of creating the right devices and tools to harvest it.
Okay, so you're saying that the energy, they're quarks, you're saying that they're waves and that they're all the same, but you can use them differently? You can, in other words, what about the frequency of it? The frequencies are different for these things.
Let me elaborate further on this.
Okay, good.
Inside of quarks, you have what are called photoradionic waves, those little strings that scientists have been trying to identify for years through their string theory. Photoradionic waves are made of 2 things, frequency and vibration. You have negative frequency, neutral frequency, positive frequency. This creates what you call dark matter. This creates neutral matter when dark matter and light matter both collide. Creates what appears to be neutral matter. It disappears, but it really doesn't. All of the matter in this universe is made of exactly the same thing at different levels of frequency and vibration, which dictates the density or lack thereof. A photon, which comes out of a light bulb, is merely just a highly vibrating quark blown away from the nucleus of its atom. What happens when those quarks get highly excited is that they begin to glow. They begin to vibrate, and eventually they blow away from each other. They stretch the nucleus of the atom and they explode. So, coming out of your light bulb, coming out of the filament of a simple light bulb, this very principle was understood by Nikola Tesla himself, was the very essence of energy, was the very essence of the universe. And what he discovered is that even the air you breathe is made of exactly the same thing, photoradionic waves, frequency, vibration. He learned to harvest this from the air itself, the ether, as I've heard many people call it. So energy flows through and within everything equally. The whole universe is made of this, whether it be rock or air or water or plasma or light. It does not matter. Every single thing in this universe is made of exactly the same thing. This also ties in with time displacement and time. Your concept of time is based off of frequency. People have created this measure of time to measure the increase of time as it progresses, but what that really is an increase of frequency. All time exists at the same time. Every time divided by a frequency, just like a radio channel. Radio channels are all divided by different numbers on a radio dial. You have channel 100, 101, 102, 103, and so on and so forth. In between those channels, you have micro frequencies, 100.1, 100.2, 100.3, and so on. All of these frequencies exist on multiple dimensions of measure. And because of this, time travel itself is possible, utilizing the very same energetic frequencies that are harvested to create electricity. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense, and this is kind of right where I wanted to ask Duncan about now. I'm not sure, Audrey, if you're familiar with Duncan's background, and I think you are, his experience.
I'm very familiar with him, yes.
Okay. Duncan, this is the application of using this energy, this technology. What happened with the I guess Project Rainbow and Project Phoenix was something that you have your background in, and I think they ended up, once they shut it down, started doing this human factors research over at Montauk, I guess the abandoned Montauk Air Force Base, where these psychological human factor programs really came about, that I think is where you came in. Is that right, Duncan?
Basically, but point of fact, they never shut anything down. They just move it.
Oh.
They just change its location. They never shut anything down that works. My answer to the question of why don't we have free energy, I just sum it up into two words: greed and power.
Right.
It's all about the human condition. There's so many energy alternatives out there that can fuel the planet that is virtually free. Nothing is completely free, but it would be virtually free.
Mm-hmm. $15.
Yeah, we're not going to get it right now until the human race as a whole changes over. So, we'll see what happens there. As far as Project Phoenix, Phoenix was an assassination program born out of the CIA in early part of Vietnam. Now, that escalated outward after that, but Phoenix, to my knowledge, is still an assassination program. Project Rainbow did have to do with radionics, energy, so on and so forth. I'm not as versed in that as I am some of the others. The Montauk project itself was mostly, most people don't know, was about dealing with timelines, trying to affect different timelines.
Right. So Duncan Cameron and let's see, who's the other fellow's name that I wrote down here? There was an interview that I had seen. If you guys mention his name, I could tell you. I know I wrote it down. But they were talking about how, so the mind control aspect of the Montauk Project was to learn how to influence the mind of man using electromagnetics. And then the time travel, the second part of that project, from what this interview, I was just quoting this interview, was to try to do the time travel, as you're saying, and to bend time using the same equipment used to bend minds.
Yeah. Are you talking about Paul Preston or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll be like, all these guys.
Yeah.
That was, the interview.
I've had conversations with both of those guys.
I mean, it's fascinating stuff, because this is the application of it. Because this Philadelphia experiment where they tried to time travel, and they were stuck in hyperspace. They were floating in hyperspace when they shut the project off. And I guess they had to go back to the generators on the Aldridge and destroy them. And then when they did that, everyone returned back to where they were, but not exactly the way it was intended.
Not exactly, no. The human body and inanimate objects will travel differently. That's why they had people literally folded inside the deck steel. Al Bielek even mentioned to me once that there were multiple people that were literally molded into each other as they were trying to to run, so they were bumping into each other. So in that moment, they became two people, kind of a
Wow.
grotesque creature.
Wow.
Yeah,
They like integrated into the metal.
Horrible ways to die. Just horrible
Isn't it?
ways to die. That's all I can say about that.
And what went wrong there?
Horrible.
I mean, time travel. So what went wrong there, Duncan? What happened?
The generator blew up. The generator blew up. Out of the Philadelphia experiment, see, they, like I said, they don't stop. They don't shut it down. They just change its name and change location.
Mm-hmm.
The Philadelphia experiment has now morphed into what we all know as the Hadron Collider, or CERN. It's the same experiments.
I mean, Brookhaven, is that the...
Brookhaven was the beginning. CERN is the culmination.
I see. But because what happened, I think, also from that experiment, why were the men basically their minds were shattered? So
Yeah.
I guess they could figure out the physics, the engineering aspect of solving that equation, but they had to start studying what happened to the men in this experiment, in this time travel. Why did they experience this? And it seemed that they had no reference point, that the mind, and I think maybe Audrey or anybody at this point can jump in, including
it was more than time travel. It was mostly, dimensional travel.
Dimensional.
And without going into detail, I can say that can drive you insane.
Well, let me ask you about this. I mean, what happens is, and I think you all know about this, and please, everybody, feel free to comment. Human beings need the electromagnetic energy of the Earth, and I think what they were describing in this interview was that when they were in hyperspace, they lost their connection with the Schumann frequency and with the electromagnetics of the Earth, because our brain, and I think this is part of what the hypothesis that they were doing this research was, that the brain is electromagnetic. And so it can be influenced from the outside by electromagnetic energy, which is, I think, where you came in, and they used you in that experiment in Vietnam as a trigger as a weapon, so to speak, when you were 12 years old. So this is how it all ties in. So I'm trying to kind of tie that in, that what's the electromagnetic, it's kind of like we're being influenced right now with all of our cell phones and all the cell towers and all this, and
and scalar waves.
Scalar waves. Go ahead, Audrey. What's that all about? How is it that they learned this, they did research, they learned this, they understood this, and I know Randy's going to have something to say about this, so everybody will just take a turn. How do we understand our mind and how it works on an electromagnetic level?
The mind works in a culmination of frequencies and vibrations, which creates an electromagnetic resonance. And what the militaries here came to understand is, by projecting radio waves and scalar waves at different frequencies, it causes people's minds to become less conducive environments for more complicated thoughts. It really interrupts their thought processes here. It can also cause nausea, can cause migraines, can cause them heart attacks, can cause them to have a hard time breathing. It can cause organs to shut down. There are many different frequencies in the body that each organ resonates at. You have frequencies ranging from about 50 to about 64 hertz within the body. Each organ has a slightly different resonance. The heart has a very high resonance, but can be interrupted by scalar waves and certain types of electromagnetic radio waves. So these things that the militaries have been using here in this society have been aimed at the people to cause them to, let's say, get migraines, to have to go out to buy into the pharmaceutical industry to try to nullify the pain that they're feeling. It causes their minds to have a hard time with recollection. It causes them to have a hard time communicating telepathically. Not only does the sodium fluoride affect their pineal glands and cause it to calcify, but they further the frequency fences here to block telepathic communication by increasing the amount of radio waves. You notice when you so much as walk into a Walmart, if you resonate at a higher vibration, you feel like you're being microwaved. When you walk into these places, these buildings, they have different nodes around the building on the inner side, in the corners, and in the center. You have about 5 different nodes, and they're broadcasting massive amounts of scalar waves that echo off the walls. People at a lower resonance don't feel it as much. But those of us that vibrate much higher in frequency, we feel like we are being bathed in microwave frequencies. We feel like we are in an oven. After about 2 hours for me, I can't tolerate being in a building like that. So just an example, you have your cell towers out there that are emitting not only just cell frequencies, but they're emitting high amounts of scalar waves bombarding all of these people. Now, these things can be used to control thought.
Okay.
They can broadcast specific frequencies that will actually manipulate thought if they were to project a message through those frequencies, just like projecting data through Wi-Fi. So, as I was saying, frequencies can be manipulated in a number of ways that can be weaponized to harm the people.
You know, it seems like this, thanks, Audrey. It seems like what came out of these experiments that Duncan was involved in, Senator Goldwater investigated this and went to the Air Force and said, you know, we have a weapon that you throw a switch and everyone throws their hands up and surrenders. And it was part of they called it a black hole project. Is this what happened, Duncan? Is this what you guys became? Were you the weapon?
I wanted to add also that they were using
Audrey.
Duncan. I'm sorry. They were using Duncan and the people that he worked with to manipulate frequencies and vibration as well through telepathic abilities. Duncan has a much higher ability to telepathically manipulate objects, matter, and people.
Right.
So they were testing the ability to have a human do what these cell towers do. Cell towers are artificial telepathic resonators in a very big way, emitting large amounts of scalar waves. But people can do this too.
Okay, Ambassador, did you have your hand up? Did you want to comment?
Yes, I would like to make some comments about things. I'm not as, what's called maybe knowledgeable, or I don't have this, exciting, space program background. I was more, involved in getting rid of people, and in the old days, and sometimes interrogating people and so on and so on. But I was not, involved in any, other than what we could call like physical secret programs, not in this programs that our guest has been involved with. It's very much amazing to hear these things, and also I wonder sometimes that even inside the services that I worked with in the past, the normal services, this type of things were never talked about. It was, it's most of the time in this region here is under the military intelligence, and it's not under the normal security services, or what you call in America CIA type of operations. Now, at a later state in my work, going back to a secret organization on the United Nations, that time there I came first time in contact with other type of extraterrestrial activities and other type of technologies that is not known to the normal public. But at the same time, I was not. My work was to supervise the financial criminals of the world and supervise the, what's going on in the political range of things. And I very fast realized that it's two type of politics, and maybe Randy can confirm that. It's one politic which is, on the surface of a planet, where everyone basically are fighting with each other and different opinions. And then is under the surface of a planet, and above the surface of the planet where everyone cooperating. And basically there it's no problems, it's all good friends and nice things. But what I've been seeing in the old days is that I have seen some of the secret programs that was done on, on the other side of the pond, basically in the Russian areas. And there I saw people doing amazing things without actually touching people even, and be able to generate forces. And like they're saying, I've been in a situation where I've been in phone calls and becoming high heart rate, getting nausea, getting sick, almost having a heart attack, and had to break the discussions, especially when I spoke to certain type of people. And I'm quite sure that we were bombarded at time by frequencies on the telephone. And we know that different frequencies can cause, like Andre was saying, different effects on the organs. You understand? And now we have also guns and other weapons that actually can kill people without leaving any type of signs of it would look like just an accident was happening. And in my case, for example, we have a good example with my heart attack, the last one I had in Hong Kong there, where basically it's no signs that I had any foreign object entering my heart, even though all the other indication was that I had a heart attack, but it's no evidence afterwards that anything ever entered my heart or anything else. And just a few days ago, and I was hospitalized for a suspected, what's called stroke, and the same thing there. This symptom was going on for about 4 hours, and after 4 hours, again I get my vision back, but I lost my vision for a time. And and I know that we are being bombarded, we're being attacked in different ways. And I just entered, like Andrew was saying, I just entered this room, and suddenly I had this major raise in my heartbeat, and suddenly I had a headache, and suddenly I saw double, and suddenly I start not able to see. And basically the paramedics, everyone was called, and they were thinking I had a stroke, which I later on, after doing all the checking later on, didn't have. So it's a lot of very strange things that's happening. But also, like I said, is the world, the Earth itself is vibrating. So actually, the vibration of Earth could actually feed the whole Earth with all electric energy. I know that the Russians has a technology to be, building house with a special type of construction material, which makes the whole house as a receiver of electricity. If everything is built on that, basically the Earth itself generates enough energy that we don't need any external energy. We can just live on the vibration. And if you remember, in all the religious books of the scholarship, it's always started with a word, and the word is also a form of vibration. And so actually the whole thing is a vibration. You see when the child come out from the stomach, is the first thing that it does is it starts screaming. It starts its life with a scream and a cry and a vibration. And I believe that also, like we have, we talked about chi energy or ki energy, we have inside of ourselves an energy which I believe it's a part of us being able to use our full potential that all human beings have. And some people have more potential than others, but is basically able to control the life force energy or the soul energy that we all have. And some people can do that more than others. And then also, of course, we have, when people are demon possessed in different shape or forms, they also can have even stronger form of energy, because these entities that is inside of this person has a different type of ki energy and very strong ki energy. And many times people are laughing at people doing certain things. Oh, this looks ridiculous, this looks strange. But if you look very, very carefully at the demonstration, you will see that actually this person is not imitating. Now, also the same thing is also the mind of people too. If a person has a weak mind, that person would be much easier controlled by other person's ki energy too. So that's why some people techniques when it comes to ki energy works better than it does on others, because of their mind are weaker or the mind are stronger. And some people have are more sensitive to energy, then other people are more in trouble. In today's world, with people being quite heavily dumbed down by the food and medications and TV and everything else, you will see that it's a lot of different things. So now we can, like for example, if you look at key energy, for example, many people say, "Oh, this is a fraud, this is fake," and basically, I can say from my own experience that I have met from some of the many of the founders of different form of martial arts, and I know that some people of them have an extreme capacity of key energy, and they have extremely capacity. And some people actually are jokers, but at the same time, everything cannot be perfect. But I think that is something, also the same thing. The body needs to always flow, and if we always flow and we always activate, then basically we will be able to defeat both diseases spiritually and mentally. And so I think that all form of martial art exercises, especially when it's focusing on the key energy, is very good for the health, spirit, body, mind of people. Something that I very much recommend, not just the martial aspects, but also the healing art experts in, for example, Qigong, Tai Chi, Aikido, whatever.
Right.
And
just, I'm sorry, well, go ahead. I have a video here that I want to just a very short clip to show what you're talking about, but I'll wait until you finish your comment on that.
Yes, yeah. And also like I said, it's that people that do this type of exercises live much longer. And also, like we're talking about, just people being tested for in these different secret military programs. I mean, look at the Chinese. They were testing poor slaves that was sentenced to death. They were testing with nails. How acupuncture was become knowledge was that they were testing it on slaves and find how they could use to manipulate the energy flow by using different points. Okay. And so all the things that we learn, killing points, striking points, joint manipulations, everything was during years and years of testing on human beings. So it's it has had a lot of occasion. All our humanity's forefront things normally starts in military and torture and evil things, and then later it comes into to good use. At a later stage when they have no other alternative.
Yeah.
Okay, you can please show.
Yeah, let me just show this to our viewers, just exactly what you're talking about, and then I'd like our other guests to comment on this too.
He says that what he does is no more supernatural than an electric eel, which also knows how to harness its yin and yang energies.
Yin yang, positive and negative. My positive from here and my negative from here. And we meet together, this can get electricity.
And this is because you're special, you have a special sort of
meditation every day.
It's meditation.
Meditation every day. It's like a yoga. But I study about 18 years.
18 years.
18 years from my child before.
Can you project this energy through your hands only or through other things as well?
Like you can touch me. Like this. It's nothing, okay? In my brain. It's like this.
Our sound recordist, Simi, was skeptical at first. Later, he told us that anybody could learn this. God had given us all the yin-yang polarity, but it takes discipline and meditation to awaken and control it. And you must be very aware of your emotions. This energy can be dangerous. It can kill as well as heal. Then he asked for our newspaper.
Just one more minute. This is pretty amazing. That is amazing. Now, who would like to start the conversation from here? Because I know you all know all about this, and Duncan, I know, is someone who has
an awful lot of knowledge on this area, and you all do. So actually, just take
Andy,
it.
how about you go ahead and step in and say something? We haven't heard from you in a little bit.
Randy.
I mean, obviously, that's a demonstration of someone who's very accomplished and can demonstrate, you know, multiple, more than one of what we call sort of the 5 transformations. So, you know, he's sort of demonstrating the ability to produce electrical charge and pyrokinesis. That's advanced stuff. So, and he summed it up pretty much. You want to develop your abilities, you discipline your mind and your body, and you meditate and to control it. And I mean, that's pretty much the secret for everybody. And my psionics curriculum is based on our military handbook, which is based on every method of ancient, you know, yoga and qigong that we could ever sort of learn or come up with and then crush into a military manual. So yeah, I'll agree.
Okay, so what is this positive negative energy? How does this man, you know, harness this in his body and then create this? Now we were all going to have a turn to talk about this, so who wants to take it next? Duncan? Or
I will just say one thing, that everyone has this capacity. It's just that you have to learn how to be able to harness it and how you will be able to use it also. Okay. I just wanted to make that point. It's not that he's a unique person. He's just more uniquely developed in understanding how to use it.
Yeah, Duncan's going to join us in a minute. He had to step away to handle a situation, a client that had arrived, but he'll be back. So let me go over to Audrey. And Audrey, this is pretty amazing stuff, and he says everybody can do it. And you talk about a meditation where you focus on, because he was pointing to a part of his body. What was he talking about there? Could you explain that?
It's called root chakra.
Oh wait, I'm sorry.
It's called Danjang. This is the underneath the navel. This is the center point where they focus to harness this type of energy. Okay. But Audrey, one question. What I wanted to ask, because I was wondering also, I wanted to ask Randy, how is extraterrestrial or non-humans, do they have a similar capacity, or they have stronger capacities in form of harnessing this form of energies?
Regardless of where we come from, we all have equal capacity to do this. All of you can do this equally. It does not matter who you are, what you're made of. So what I teach people to do is to focus on a star growing at their center near their heart chakra, which is slightly different. And the reason I do this is because it empowers your heart. It empowers your chakra system from the core and allows you to increase the vibratory frequencies of all of the quarks within your body as you meditate, allowing for the mitochondria within your cells to recharge to proper levels, thus allowing the cells to replicate properly and produce and metabolize minerals, vitamins, proteins, hyaluronic acids, and other elements of the body, as well as magnesium, zinc, and other minerals at youthful levels. So this balances the body, allowing you to heal much, much quicker internally, allowing your organs to regenerate properly and restoring vitality and youth. You can actually reverse age itself with this process. What this Qigong master was demonstrating is the use of this very same energy to manipulate external forces, external objects, such as creating fire, pyrokinesis. And I've seen that very same video, in fact, and he also uses it to send charges into the muscles of the patients that he's treating. So using this very same technique, you can you project energy externally. Yes, we can all do this. I can do this. It's not a difficult thing to do. It takes focus. It does take practice. You have to learn to charge up your chakras. In order to be able to project energy, it takes focus. You have to know which ley lines in your body you want to channel it through. I can choose which side I want to channel my energy through versus another. I can channel it through my hands, through my feet, through my crown. It does not matter. So the energy can be created from within and projected outwards. It can also be taken from outside of you. You draw it in from the environment as you are pulling it into yourself when you are charging up your chakras as well, not just from within. You're using the ether itself to be able to charge up your chakras. And this is another method of manipulating external forces. You can focus and create the intention of, let's say, manipulating the wind or manipulating a storm or manipulating another person. So these things happen internally and they happen externally all at once. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think Ambassador, or was that Randy? Sorry, I had to stop to.
No, I was also asking Randy if he had any experience with that and how it works outside the Earth also.
Sure. First law of psionics is that all thought produces psionic energy. So I produce psionic energy, you produce psionic energy, a house cat produces psionic energy, a mouse produces psionic energy, and so does anything else that has living consciousness. So but we know from lab work that outputs and potentials vary based on a number of organic factors, genetic factors, bioenergetic factors, evolutionary factors, and personal discipline and input factors that vary what people's psionic inputs and potentials are. So from what I understand, different extraterrestrial species who have a discipline or a focus on that do things that are similarly different than what we do, but usually involve some form of regulating breathing, because regulating your breathing is kind of a universal way of regulating your vibration, because your breathing is the one thing in your autonomic system that you can control, and it will regulate the wave pattern of everything else in your autonomic system when you do. So breathing, sort of meditative techniques, vibrational techniques based on their own brainwaves and so forth are going to be semi-universal, meaning not necessarily exactly transferable, but you are really talking about the same basic screwdrivers and wrenches for the same basic nuts and bolts, though.
Okay, I wanted to bring Duncan in here because what we're talking about, the ambassador said something that was interesting. There's like a couple things I want to touch on, but the ambassador says the word, in the beginning there's the word, which is vibration, and how powerful this is. And I know that Duncan does workshops and he teaches about spells, because he's very, I believe Duncan, studied with the Druids and understands how to use, it's one thing to talk about the concept of us having this other energy and resource for us to use, and then it's another conversation of all the different ways it can be used to do all these different things. So Duncan, could you talk about this concept of the word, and creating the spell, the idea of creating spells with words, and obviously it could be used for positive and negative. We're going to keep our focus on positive.
You have all day?
Yeah, all day? Do we have all day? We'll give it a shot. If you want to, how is it that a frequency can have such power to...
Intention.
Okay.
It's mostly about intention. When you're talking about a magic spell, you're putting your thoughts into words and energizing the words itself. That encompasses many different things depending on the kind of spell it is. You may use 1, 2, 3, or all 4 elements. Put the spirit into it. All of those are just tools to fuel the spell. The spell itself comes from you. We are, and I missed the last bit. I had to reboot the computer.
Oh, okay.
We are bioelectromagnetic machines. We generate electromagnetism. We generate electricity. That is, in essence, I believe, our key, or whatever word the culture uses. When you sling a spell or cast a spell, it is more commonly called, you are putting not only your energy into those words, thoughts, and intent, but whatever tool you are using to fuel it with, whether it be your own emotions, whether it be you call upon an element, whether it is you have built a fire, you're using quartz crystals, so on and so forth. It comes down to the topic that this interview is about, energy. It's how you are using tools, the elements, etc., to magnify your energy, to put it into a intentional thought pattern for a very specific purpose.
Wow, this is so far out. So you're saying that we're batteries and that we have to learn how to use our batteries because we can do
we are batteries.
Right.
The human body is the generator. We generate. This is why when someone gets sick, we'll do a scan and say your shield is down. Okay, we generate an electromagnetic shield around us. And that's one of the first things we do when we work on a client. We check the shield to see if it's up, down, how far off the body it projects, so on and so forth. If it's down too low, well, illness usually ensues. Could be because, as I think I heard Randy talking about the psychotronics, being bombarded with Wi-Fi, cell phones, the towers, so on and so forth, plays hell on our systems. It lowers the shields, lowers the vibration, and one of the things we do is work to bring that back up in the person. A spell itself, as I said, is just putting it into words and thought, and then putting it into use, putting it where you need it to go. And it goes out into the ether, and then it hits wherever you aim it.
Well, how do you know? How do you check on that?
Practice.
Practice.
I have a question to our friend here in relation to spells and black magic. Because the thing is this way, what I have seen in relation to black magic and darkness is that is basically that when you do a physical medical check on the person, he will be physically all right. There's no problems with it, but he has all form of sickness symptoms, and he's really physically sick, but you will not find it on any measurements. Correct?
You are correct.
Yeah, because also like what I have noticed is that actually a person that comes under the spells, he doesn't like to take showers, he doesn't like to, he needs to go and urinate a lot, he has a lot of bloating in his body, and he has all form of different type of sickness problems, a problem with sleeping, and basically has all type of sickness problems, but when he goes to a medical doctor, all his things are correct.
Right, they can't find the cause of it.
Exactly.
That's exactly right. To build on that briefly, as with the topic of the conversation with energy, energy is energy. It's neither good nor bad. Magic is energy in its purest form. It comes from the energy of the power of creation itself. It is neither good nor bad. It just is. What separates what is commonly called black magic, white magic, so on and so forth, is the intention of the individual. Now, when you get out into the broadest scope, when people are practicing, as we'll say, black magic, you have differences in rituals. tools being used. With black magic, there's blood sacrifices, so on and so forth, which again is a release of emotions from the animal, the person, whatever, that is then absorbed into the spell and used to fuel it. That's dark magic. White magic, as is commonly known, is more about doing good, helping, so on and so forth. And there is no sacrifice of that. But the process of using the energy is still the same. It's still the same.
And also, I just wanted to state the thing that I have noticed is that even like emotions that to certain people through the spells, you can have partners that suddenly they start hating each other, can't stand each other even, and how come this is my question because I've seen it live many times. Is that how come that some people can be affected by this situation but can't be affected by other forms of attacks?
Shielding. I think that comes down to shielding. How much we just call it juice. How much juice you are producing, and the quality of the energy or the juice that you're producing. If you want to keep yourself pure, I hate to sound biblical, but do good works. The better person you are, the more white, the more silver your shield is going to be. The stronger it will become. But of course, if you become a target, then if you get dark practitioners who constantly are throwing things at you, bombarding you, they can weaken you down over time without help, without tune-ups, without boosting that shield back up.
Because also I have noticed that you can weaken the spells that they put against you by obligation, but basically by washing yourself spiritually at the five senses, basically clean them by water, and also using your own spells too for protection.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
But isn't there something to be said for the locations of where these occur? And I want to go back to what we were talking about before when we're talking about the Earth's frequency, and I want to ask Audrey to come in on this too. The pyramids, weren't the pyramids? I mean, I've seen some aerial photos of how some ancient cities were built and how the pyramids all kind of resemble circuit boards, and so that was harnessing the energy of the Earth. And what was that all about, Audrey?
Those pyramids and the cities that were built were used to harness the ether through the ley lines of the earth. And the ley lines are interconnected in a web all around this planet. So they managed to find a way to utilize the ley lines here to create free energy, which could broadcast from those pyramids into the ether and power devices wirelessly. This is a very long time ago. Those pyramids utilized a form of crystal-based technology in resonance through the pyramids. They could create a vibratory frequency similar to an audio resonance, which would create a wireless electromagnetic frequency into the air. It would amplify the ether within those areas. It would utilize the ionosphere, which would allow for the energy to actually radiate around the planet. Multiple pyramids were placed all around this planet, and those pyramids were all placed strategically around ley lines, purposefully to maintain an equilibrium of energy around the planet. Didn't matter where you went. You could power devices such as cell phones, which, yes, did exist back in those days. So we had the ability to power vehicles back in those days too, based off of the same frequencies. These pyramids also acted as a shield for the planet back in those days. created a very strong magnetic frequency fence that also prevented, let's say, outside gamma rays and radiation from being able to affect the people on the planet or solar flares. So it enhanced the magnetic field of the planet to further ward off, let's say, solar flares coming from the sun or other outside external forces.
Isn't this like the pyramids? I mean, they are, they model the Orion constellation, the position of them. So was this not a communication system between
They were too,
the Anunnaki? Yeah, it was. Okay. And so, but what about, so you're talking about the Egyptians had free energy. Because I think there's some hieroglyphics. I don't know if Randy knows about this or anybody else knows about this, but there were hieroglyphics that show the Egyptians walking around with a pole that shows like a light would be on the end of it, and there's no cord. So
precisely, wireless energy allowed them to power a myriad of devices that they produced back in those days without the need for wires.
They used a lot of chemical batteries, actually, too. A lot of really simple chemical-powered batteries.
Very true.
Like what? What do you mean? What do you mean, Randy?
A pot with some like acid base and a couple of wires on it, and a couple of like hard pieces of metal on it, like a wet cell battery, basically. Really, I mean, something you could make in a clay pot and a couple pieces of metal and some salt and water and stuff. They're like a potato, like getting electricity out of a potato or a lemon.
What about this Ormus and this monoatomic gold? What did this do to our bodies, and how did that help us as our energy body? Who wants to? And you can all have a turn at talking about this because I know you guys know about this. What did I
just want to say one short thing, and then I have to excuse me, Randy and Oren and everyone else that's here, because I have guests that's from another continent that I had to go to entertain. But I think that monotonic gold is a very good thing if it's the real stuff. Yeah. And this is very important to state this, if it's the real stuff, because there's a lot of fraudulent monotonic gold that's going to make you have a kidney failure, or worse, you might even die, okay? So you have to be very, very careful when you're dealing with it. But monotonic gold is, it's something very positive for us, and it's one of the reasons why Anunnaki came here in the first place, and that's why the family has been harvesting this thing, and it exists in its pure form, but unfortunately it's just few people that's allowed to use it. But it's a lot of fraudulent monotonic gold surfacing on the market, and you have to be very careful because it might cause you a kidney failure or worse. You understand? And I'd like to thank you all for being here, and I have to excuse myself, everyone. And I hope to see you all back soon at the GoldFish Report. And I will continue to listen to the program together.
Okay,
thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We're going to continue our conversation.
God bless you. Thank you.
We're going to continue our conversation here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ambassador. So what about this monatomic gold? Is this hard to find on this planet?
There's a bunch of different companies that make it. I've taken a few different kinds that a few different companies make. The kind that I used to get is no longer being manufactured at the moment, or the company has had it not available for about 3 months. So I'm looking for another source to see if it's, good. But, I try them and see what the difference is. And one of the first things that I notice is an amazing anti-inflammatory. And so I have fibromyalgia and stuff, puffy joints. And if it's good mono gold, within a couple of days my inflammation will go down to almost zero. It's pretty impressive, actually.
Wow. What about Duncan? I have a feeling Duncan would know where to get this stuff. Are you there, Duncan? Or Audrey probably would be able to tell us if it is something that is authentic or not.
Well, monatomic gold can either be harvested or it can be made. It can be reverse engineered from gold itself. But it depends on the quality of the gold that you're reverse engineering it from. There are many different levels of quality with gold. Pure gold yields pure monatomic gold when it's reverse engineered into its most basic elements. You got to understand that monoatomic gold is singular atomic. It's not a multi-atomic structure like, let's say, gold is.
Mm-hmm.
It's an M-state matter. So monatomic gold, what it does when you take it into your body, it actually attaches to your DNA strands. It can actually, the molecules are so tiny they can actually pass through your chromosomes. And what they do is act as amplifiers in a very big way, and, as Randy very clearly stated, an anti-inflammatory. They do a whole lot of things. So it acts as an amplifier, and what this does with pineal glands is it acts as a radio amplifier. It allows for you to transmit intentions and signals more clearly. So this also in your system, in your chakra system, amplifies your ability to carry energy through your chakra, to channel energy or to harvest energy. So it acts as a massive amplifier for a number of different things in your body. But taking it in very large amounts can be very bad for you over a long period of time, because what it does is it completely coats your DNA strands. It can make them very brittle, cause DNA to break, cause your cells to start to break down eventually. So
Wow.
if you're going to take monatomic gold, you take it in moderation. You never take too much of it. The problem with Anunnaki is they take too much of it. They become overly dependent on it, and this is why they harvest it everywhere they go. They have been taking it so long that if they don't, their bodies begin to break down very rapidly. They age very fast. Their organs begin to fail, so they have to take it. See, the problem with taking too much monatomic gold over a long period of time is that you become overly dependent on it. It becomes a requirement to survive. And as it becomes more scarce, if you are dependent on it, your life becomes more scarce too.
Well, this I've also heard of salmonaic. What do you know about this salmonaic? Do you know anything about that?
Salmonaic? No.
Yeah, it tastes like
Not something that we use.
No, it tastes like dirty gym socks, very salty and smelly. And quite
But
honestly,
because it's a sodium-based product, it also acts as an amplifier, can also act as an energy amplifier. Any type of a raw sodium can do this. Epsom salt, for instance, could do such a thing. So monatomic gold acts as an amplifier in the form of a carrier. Just as having wires of high quality metals carries electricity much faster, like having gold wires would carry electricity quickly from one point to another. The same thing happens to your chakra system. When you take a decent amount of monatomic gold in moderation, and we'll place emphasis on that, in moderation, over a period of time, your body becomes more conducive to channeling electricity, your chakra system, your ki. So Anunnaki have been using this for millennia to be able to amplify their abilities to manipulate things both telepathically and telekinetically, to also increase their longevity, to try to maintain their vitality and youth over very long periods of time, to keep one body in a state where it is still usable. Even after thousands of years, some of these Anunnaki can still be alive because of the consumption of monatomic gold. But you'll notice that they start to look very old and withered. There's nothing they can do to fix this. Not even meditating on a star would fix that, because now their DNA strands are so calcified with monatomic gold at this point that undoing that damage is not possible, not easily. It becomes a permanent damage as the monatomic particles attach to the DNA strands on such a micro level, it becomes like cement.
now let me ask, thanks Audrey, let me ask Duncan about this. Duncan, do you know where, or do you have a source of monoatomic gold that, that you can recommend?
No, I've used it. I don't like it.
Okay, so...
Whatever Randy may be able to speak to some of this. Whatever was done to us in the project that I was in,
Mm-hmm.
most things have the opposite reaction with us.
Oh.
Monatomic gold, basically, when I took it, and it was the high caliber source. It was the most expensive, best there was out there at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It left me virtually lethargic. I didn't dream. I didn't want to do anything. I felt weak. And once I stopped taking it, it took about 2 days to get it out of my system, and I started returning to normal.
Oh, so not a good reaction.
Not for me, because
Right.
see, I can't take narcotic pain meds either.
Mm-hmm.
They have the exact opposite effect.
Oh, that's interesting.
How about colloidal silver?
Colloidal silver, I've taken.
Yeah.
I have no problem with anything silver.
Right. What about Ormus? What is the Ormus about? Does anybody can comment, by the way, because I know you may all have different experiences with it. Anyone?
Not enough to talk about, no.
Ormus. Himalayan sea salt. Is there something you said? A salt
that we use. Yeah, we use that a lot.
Okay. So let me focus. So I mean, there's so much. I mean, we can really spend a show, on all the different topics that we've covered today, and we've really just kind of started. We're at an hour point, 1 hour, and what I'd like to kind of move to next is really what can we do? What can we offer our guests our viewers in a practical sense? What do you think is the first thing we can try to reach out to people and help them? And I would say, Randy, one of the things that I've learned from you is you sent me a book that I had started reading, and it was about learning how to change our brain waves and the things that we can do automatically, and we can train ourselves. This is all, I think, the beginning of your psionics, and maybe this is part of meditation, but can you give us a little bit of information about that and why?
Brainwave mastery is essentially the most fundamental tool that you want to be able to have or to master in order to be able to develop your psionic abilities in any way, shape, or form. It's the key to all meditative exercise. It's the key to understanding any of your deep theta wave states or theta states. So brainwave mastery is simply the ability to understand how your brainwaves function, the patterns that they make, and how to alter those patterns at will to get the ideal patterns that you want, which is a very simple explanation, and it's a bit harder to sort of teach that and to master it, but it's not rocket surgery. Again, these are not difficult concepts. Essentially, as you may have gotten through the book, it's essentially shows that the brainwave patterns, have different patterns when people are in ideal states. You have states when people are very excited or very, panicky. You can see what happens when you have sort of the lower end cutoff, the delta cutoff, versus when people become sort of engaged with their reality, and then that sort of delta bottom theta starts to open up, and then you have this bottleneck in the middle that you have to pry open, and you call your alpha bridge, which is how you do it through meditative exercise, qigong yoga exercises, etc. So yeah, it's basically it's really the how-to. So once you understand that there's a functionality here, these are laws, this is how it works, then people are like, what do I do now? Well, brainwave mastery.
The laws of psionics you talk about all the time, and you teach in your workshops, from what I understand. But are you talking about? Okay, so in our conscious state, we can access certain wavelengths, but then as we go into sleep and we go into like this twilight, right before we go into deep sleep, explain what can we do in that, what is that twilight, I guess would be in the, what is it called? It's like when you're lucid dreaming or you're in astral, something like that. Where's your brain? What's happening to your brain when you're in astral? Because some people can say they have a really very, very realistic, they can feel things. It's very realistic in astral, whereas a regular dream, they're more observing. So what's the difference there?
Where you're at. I mean, one state you're in your body and the other you're not really. I mean, so that's just, those are very, very different states of being, and you have a very different state of experience when you're in your body or when you're not in your body.
Okay, so for some listeners who don't know about this, I understand that it might seem like I'm asking some basic questions, but I have to always keep in mind that we have viewers who are at different levels of their research and different levels of their, you know, knowledge and awakening, whatever you want to say. And everyone's heard of astral projection, but not everybody experiences it. Why is it some people can really experience this astral projection phenomena and some can't?
Real like out of body, your higher self regulates that, and it's actually kind of a dangerous exercise. Too much out of body, you can actually accomplish a bit sort of more vision safer with remote viewing. So some people don't because it's really not safe for them, and some people, their higher selves are just going to regulate, nah, astral travel is way too dangerous for you.
Why is it dangerous? What can happen?
Other things can come in and take your body.
Oh, well, that's a good reason why I might want to. And so you have to be a master at this in order to, and Audrey or
you have to be really good at it. Yeah,
Duncan,
it's really not something to be advised that you practice if you not have a real knack for it, that you're not really masterful at it. I certainly don't teach it or recommend people that they astrally travel at all, ever.
Yeah, unless you have a really good teacher. Like if you're guided or if you have a good teacher, would that be for, would that be
if someone says that they're that good and you trust them to be that good, that's up to you. I would never teach somebody astral travel, and I would never recommend anybody undertake it as a technique or a school unless they already had a natural ability at it and they felt that it was really important in their life to do. Otherwise, I say avoid it.
Because you're like abdicating your body, aren't you? Then at that point, you're almost like opening up a door, welcoming anything in. Really, is that what you're saying?
Well, okay, put it this way: if we really lived in our houses like we do in our bodies, and you never left and you never walked out the front of the back door, your house would be pretty safe from burglars. The instant you leave, it's kind of open to burglars. And so your body is really the same way. When you leave, all of a sudden it's like, hey, empty house, let's go loot it. And then somebody might find a way in. But if you're in your house all the time, it's a lot harder for people to come in and invade. It does happen, but it's much more difficult.
It's a great analogy, Randy, because for some people who don't really understand this, that made a very simple explanation. Audrey or...
I wanted to add really quick, it's like leaving your car with your keys in the ignition, the car is turned on, your door's wide open, you walk away.
Okay.
Versus knowing to close your door and lock your car before you leave. There are people that will walk away from their cars, leave their keys in their ignition, the engine is on. They walk away for about 2 minutes and their car is taken away from them. This can happen more often than not. Your body is your vehicle, that is your car. And if you are naive and you leave your door open with your keys in your ignition, something is bound to take it. So it is very dangerous. I don't advise it to people that don't know what they're doing.
I see.
That have never done it before, that have no understanding of what can happen out there, because there are a lot of things in that plane that I've seen that are very dangerous. You have to know how to handle them. You have to know how to protect your body. You have to know when to go back.
I see.
So there are many, many different things out there that are bad, but there are some good things about astral projection. If you know what you're doing, you know how to control where you're going. You know how to control which level you're going to, and this takes a mastery, this takes practice. And in some cases, this takes a natural ability to do it. But again, if you do this and you are naive, you go there and you don't know what you're doing, you're asking for a very large amount of trouble that you don't want. Randy is very right.
It's like the Outlaws, right? It's like full of outlaws, the astral plane.
It's a lot more than you think.
If I can
go ahead,
on that one,
please.
That's one of the things that Susan and I have encountered quite a bit of are people coming to us that have dark attachments, dark energy attachments, so on and so forth, and they picked them up while playing around in the astral. I agree. The astral can be a fun place. It can also be a very, very dangerous place. If you die in the astral, you die here. You're physical in the astral.
Well, Duncan, you're considered a tween man, so you can walk. You can walk between. What is that like?
Scary as hell.
What?
It means I walk around 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, seeing things from the spirit realm, the astral realm, in front of me, beside me, behind me, that nobody else sees.
Okay. And so.
And that means I cross over quickly. I don't have to meditate to cross over. I literally just close my eyes and say, I'll be right back.
Wow. And that's a world that you've done this your whole life.
I was born with this. Yeah.
Okay, so you're basically of two worlds then, because you must know then how to navigate and on how to exist there if it allows you to keep coming back there. Is that right?
One of the things that happens to both of us actually is we get pulled. We'll be pulled into the astral by source, higher beings, whatnot. We'll feel the tug, and the next thing we're there. We try to protect each other as much as possible. When she goes, I'll circle her. When I go, she'll circle me. We hold the other's hand. We protect. We watch out.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stress enough. If you die there, you die here.
Well, there's that silver cord. What is that silver cord for our viewers who don't have never heard of this? We have a silver cord that attaches to us on the etheric.
It's like the umbilical cord. That's what keeps us connected, keeps the spirit, the soul, whatever you want to call it. It keeps us connected to this plane, to this realm, to the body.
Okay, well, what's actually astral traveling? Is it our consciousness or is it our soul?
That's a good question, isn't it?
Audrey?
That answer is going to depend on who you ask.
Or Randy? Anybody?
There are different levels of
travel. Depends on who you ask. Yeah, it depends on who you ask on how you define consciousness or soul.
I'm sorry, Audrey.
Projection of self.
Not a problem. But as I was going to say, you can travel out with your soul, yes, and your body will remain an empty vessel, just like leaving your car. Or you can travel with your mind. You can see much further through the astral if you travel with just your consciousness itself. But consciousness and your soul, your light being, are connected in a way to where you always have a cord to that too. But if that gets severed, then a soul can be attached to, and then that person becomes very corrupt. So there are very dark things out there, if you travel there, that can attach to you if you don't know how to defend yourself.
Well, what we're talking about here is right. What we're talking about here is, thank you, Audrey, not to get religious like Duncan says, but we can always pull something out of the Bible or out of someplace to kind of, back up a point.
It does have its merits. It does have its good points because, it's much more ancient writing, borrowed script, so there are some good things in there.
But it was Jesus that said it's the unseen that is more important. And so what is he talking about? This is what he's talking about.
Most of Jesus' let's call them lectures.
Lectures, go ahead.
So on and so forth, was about the spirit realm. He taught very little from my readings and my studies, and I spent several years as I think we discussed, as a third order Franciscan, going through a lot of study and whatnot. 90+% of what he talked about concerned the spirit realm. He spoke very little about the actual physical realm, other than do good to one another, take care of each other, so on and so forth. But most of what he talked about was the spirit realm.
So if there's this mystery about the Shroud of Turin, and I know this is still related, because from what I understand, there was really no image on it until they took it under certain lighting conditions or X-ray lighting, and they found this complete impression of a man who was obviously crucified or well beaten, and it is supposed to be authentic. I have heard this from several sources that it is authentic, and it is the shroud that actually covered Jesus after he was persecuted, although there's a lot of evidence suggesting he didn't die from this. But this is not a religious argument or debate or conversation right now. But the fact that this imprint, these were like ultraviolet. How did that happen? Does anybody know?
Well, first of all, there's argument,
okay,
or just to say about when the soul, spirit, ghost, what depending on what culture you bring up, actually leaves the body when it dies. Since we are biochemical electronic machines, the physical body can die, the brain can still have electronic activity in it, and it could linger. I have known priests that can say they can still give last rites up to 24 hours
after passing. Oh, interesting. Hold on a second, Audrey. Did you want to comment on that shroud and how what was it that put that image? How did that happen? Did you ever comment, Audrey?
Well, I wasn't going to comment specifically on that as much as ascension and what that is.
Oh, great. Let's go for it.
Well, what ascension does is when you raise the frequency and vibration of all the quarks in your body that make up your entire being, beyond that of the frequency fence, beyond that of the frequency of this plane, you will ascend. You go photoradionic, just like quarks do coming out of light bulbs. So your entire body, you travel with it, not without it, when you ascend. It's a whole different process versus astral travel. So you take your body with you. What happens is that your body will begin to glow through visible light, and then it will glow and shine very brightly in ultraviolet and infrared before you are completely out of this spectrum. So
wow.
You go to another dimension.
So
much higher dimension, much higher frequency.
Well, a lot of scientists were reviewing this shroud and trying to determine what was the mechanism that put the imprint on the shroud, on the material itself. And you're saying
the ultraviolet frequencies produced through ascension burned it into the shroud. That is your answer.
Wow. So that's amazing. That goes to show that we are super incredible human beings, as far as I can understand. That we are so much more than we've ever been taught, ever been told, ever been taught, and we have such greater abilities than we even know. And that's what our hope on this GoldFish report is to bring out and to bring forth and to share with people what it is that really we haven't been permitted. We haven't been allowed to know. But I think the time is now to share, and so people can really understand that we're manifesting what we have. Right, Randy? I mean, let me just go ask Randy for a second, because aren't we manifesting this world that we have right now because of all this manipulation, and aren't we just far greater in our capacity than what we're currently living?
Reality is a manifestation of every single psionic consciousness that incorporates and makes up that reality. So it's a very complicated answer to say who or what makes up our reality, because it's us and a lot of other living things that make up that reality. So we play a part in the conscious creation of that reality, and every other living conscious thing that is participating in that reality with us also has a participation in that reality. So we don't make all of it, they don't make all of it. It's a very complicated co-creative process.
Very dynamic. But I mean, how do you I mean, there's a different timelines though. I mean, so how did different timelines get created? How are they manifested? What's the mechanism that
that's temporal mechanics, and I'm not even going to begin to try and have a conversation about temporal mechanics.
Okay, well, it's not for another time.
It's just too complicated, and,
Yeah.
and like less than 1% of everybody even understands it. So it's a waste of conversation for the most part.
But it can happen. I mean, we can have multiple timelines. There can be other timelines. There's
Oh,
obviously
we,
other universes. Yeah.
we have a thing called temporal mechanics
Yeah.
because temporal science is a science. It's just really complicated, and it's not something I find I'm great at explaining, and people are even less great at understanding. So it's really no point talking
Not a
about
problem, but just in terms of our conversation, I mean, what I guess the important point is that we have been manipulated to as manifestors, as creators.
it. Yeah,
We've
absolutely.
yeah, and
Yeah,
so
absolutely. No, we've clearly been steered to think about our reality in a more negative way that creates a more of a negative reality than being steered in a way that creates a more of a positive thinking pattern about a reality. That's true. But it's a very complicated
sure.
like layout, and so that's really a hard question to answer without oversimplifying it, or yeah.
Sure, and I'm trying to just provide information for our viewers that they can, it's palatable, something that they can really think about, maybe
Yeah.
chew on a little, digest, I don't know why I'm using a food analogy, but it works good. But, so if there's anything along those lines, Randy, that you can offer people, because I really, what we want to focus on here is what is it that what's going to help people? What do you think the first thing to do is? What do you think people? What's the first thing people need to start doing? They want to start, preparing for ascension, or preparing for the higher frequencies, fourth dimension, whatever. What is the first thing people should be doing, really?
Take a disciplined approach to their own reality. So people need to start taking control of their own bodies, their own minds, and their own personal spaces. And let me be very specific about that. If a person thinks that they're going to live a spiritually harmonious life with a cluttered mind, a cluttered body, and a cluttered personal space, they are incorrect. If you want to harmonize your energetic space, you have to harmonize your thinking space, your physical space, both internally, your body, and externally, the physical space where you live, because all of these things have an influence on the end product. There's an equation for all of this, and the end result here is affected by all of those things. And so if you want the output at the end to be harmonious, in your moment existence to be a harmonious output, all of those things that add into that count. You don't manifest your world just by thinking about it. You do it by being completely physically feeling into it, when you're not just in this process, but when you're thinking and experiencing with your entire mind body experience. That's when it starts to happen. We certainly teach people in the handbook that if you think all of your psionics are happening in your mind, no, just not at all. Like if you can't connect this part with the whole complicated part that's happening in your body, you will never, ever, ever manifest anything other, than a minor blip of an ability. So you have to bring everything into the equation, and you have to bring your thoughts, your body, and your personal experience space into harmony. And I because if you're saying what do people really need, my experience is when people come to me and say, this is what's happening in my life, here's what I need, the first thing I can say to them is like, well, discipline your ass. Like, stop, doing the things that are not right for you. If your sleeping pattern is not right, discipline that crap. If your eating patterns are not right, discipline that crap. If your eating, drinking, smoking patterns are not right, discipline that crap. Like, when you can discipline your external world, your body, and your mental and physical emotional space, when you control your reality, and by taking responsibility for it, right? That's saying I'm totally responsible for what I put in. I'm totally responsible for, whether I leave my space a disaster. I'm totally responsible for what I'm spending my time thinking about all day. And when you take that responsibility into action, then you start to actually have an effect. So if people want to actually have an effect, then you have to take control of your life. And taking control of your life means taking control of your thoughts and your mind, taking control of your body, and taking control of your personal space.
But Randy, don't you talk about this in your workshops? Isn't this what some of the
I mean,
psionics workshops?
well, I mean, we did one good class that was not complete, and I have a curriculum to sort out and my students to sort out, and sometime next year we'll hope to have a polished curriculum and do another class, but I'm not doing too much teaching of it right now because I got other things to do that are more important.
Exactly, because what's important is that people, people want to come and study. I mean, they want to learn, they want someone to teach them. So they have the willingness. They just, and so, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. And so I think you're all teachers, and I'd like to offer to our viewers that, at some point, an opportunity to do, a webinar with you, Randy, or with Duncan, with Audrey, to get different kinds of information for people to learn and to develop themselves. And so we will be announcing those as they are developed, and we will announce them on the GoldFish Report and on our Facebook page, which is our news site, just so people are aware, because we want to encourage, we're serious about this, about bringing information and knowledge to people who can use it to improve the quality of your life. So you keep us posted on that, Randy, and let us know, because to make sure people know where to go. They need teachers. People need teachers. You've come about learning this a long time, and it's hard also, I think, sometimes to do it as a webinar. Sometimes makes it a little bit easier for people who can't travel. So that is always one option to go with. So I just wanted to put that out there. Now also, Duncan, I know that you also do workshops, and it's amazing because you teach to learn about energy, people to learn how to feel energy, how to direct energy. This is fascinating stuff. It's like Obi-Wan Kenobi, I mean, in the part of Star Wars where he comes by and he's trying to, Luke Skywalker, and they're going to look for a pilot in the bar, and they're looking for them. The droids are looking for them. So, the stormtroopers, and he moves his hand across, and they're like, you can go. He says, you can go. I mean, this is like cool stuff, Look, I mean, I'm like already, I got my, look at my little lightsaber,
That's what's commonly known as glamour magic in here. But yeah, in some of these workshops, sometimes the things that happen are just about that dramatic. In some cases, it's very subtle. But in any case, there are physical manifestations that everyone sees, feels, hears, or whatnot. So most people do definitely leave with a changed perspective. We're, as a race, as the human race, it's not that we don't have the knowledge to do all these things, it's that we've forgotten it. And it's time we all started to remember and wake up to the things that we were meant to be and that we were meant to do. There's nothing new here. This is old knowledge. This is old teaching. There is nothing new. We just, as a race, we've forgotten it.
Okay, I know that Audrey had a comment that he wanted to make. Where did you go, Audrey?
I just wanted to add to what Randy had already said there. I've been teaching people for some time now that they cannot sail a boat with their anchor down. You can't fly a hot air balloon with your weights attached. If you want to learn to ascend and heal, to raise your abilities, to do a whole lot of miraculous and wonderful things, you have to learn to let go of hate and anger and pain and sadness, let go of ego. You can't hold on to these things and progress. These things weigh you down. You have to learn to love. You have to learn to have unconditional love for everyone around you. Learn to forgive people regardless of what they did. It does not matter if they're your enemy or your friend.
Mm-hmm.
You learn to forgive people. You don't have to tell them that you forgave them. All you have to learn to forgive people, even if just for yourself, to let go of those anchors so that you can learn to sail and learn to ascend, learn to heal.
You're talking about like the Ho'oponopono. Are you familiar with that?
No.
The Ho'oponopono is like a prayer, a Hawaiian, actually. I think Duncan's wife, Susan, might know about this. It's the Ho'oponopono is where you just basically say to somebody, and not in front of them, but kind of remotely anywhere. You just say consciously, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, I love you, something like that. And oh no, I'm sorry if I ever hurt you, please forgive me, I love you. And that's the Ho'oponopono. And there was a study done that showed that there was, I guess, a mental hospital institution, psychiatric ward, where the I guess one of the nurses or one of the stewards on the ward or whatever would be doing the night shift and would kind of not really have anything to do. And he would just go through all the files of all the patients who were in the psychiatric ward. And he would do the Ho'oponopono on each of these patients. And, eventually one by one, they were being discharged. Randy, did you hear about this? Or did you hear about this?
That sounds
Duncan?
vaguely familiar, but
Yeah.
I don't know the story specifically.
Right. But have you?
I've heard Susan talk about this a few times. She's not here right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's got the front.
Not a problem.
Yeah, that goes back to some of the things that that we teach and whatnot. You have to forgive. Hate, love are two opposite ends of the stick, and they're equally as powerful. Hate is commonly used in dark magic. Love is used in what's commonly known as white magic. You got to get rid of the hate. You have to forgive, but at the same time, that doesn't mean you have to turn your back on the individual again. It's kind of like turning the other cheek. You can turn the other cheek, but it doesn't mean you're going to drop your guard again.
It also doesn't mean that you condone what they do.
No,
Right.
You can never condone darkness, period. And that's one of the biggest things that we have been arguing with people about when they say they don't want to give darkness energy by looking at it or thinking about it. My question is, how the hell are you going to fight an enemy if you don't know your enemy? You have to look at it. You have to explore it. You have to learn about it in order to beat it. When I was fighting, and I was a professional fighter for a lot of years, and I looked at tapes. I would travel great distances to watch my next opponent fight. I would learn everything I could learn about that person before I ever walked in the ring with him. And the only time I was ever beaten in the ring was when I took an unknown fighter and took the fight. And he beat my ass half to death.
There's a lot of wisdom in what you just said.
If you're going to walk in the light, you have to understand the darkness. If you don't understand it, sooner or later, it will envelop you from behind. And then your butt's toast.
That's very wise, very, very wise. Randy, did you want to, or Audrey, did you have a comment on that?
No, he is very right. I had no comment on it.
Randy was shaking his head yes, I noticed when he was talking about you have to know your enemy. And I think...
Yeah, it's definitely something we have to be aware of. I get irritated by people who say things, no, I don't want to focus on that, that's negative. And I want to smack them and say, well, then you're not going to know, when the punch is coming because I don't want to focus on the negative. It's like not looking at the fist coming for your face because you don't want to focus on the negativity of it until it hits you in the face, which seems kind of dumb to me. So, yeah, it's kind of important to understand your enemy.
And I understand. I encounter that too, and I understand that too. It's kind of almost like the same thing where they can't handle it for some reason. It's like they can't handle. Some people just can't handle the truth of it and the darkness of it. The idea of that the Satanists. There's so many Satanists in this world, and what they're actually doing, like we were talking about earlier, in the interview. And I just want to say that I have to tell you that we're going to be starting to wrap it up, and I want everybody to think about whatever kind of final comments or closing, not even comments, but anything that you thought would be important or relevant to bring to a roundtable like this. on this subject matter, anything we haven't talked about yet, because I know even the issue of cymatics and how these crop circles are made is another issue I wanted to talk about, and maybe somebody may feel like they want to comment on it, but it seems to me that it's simply a frequency that is used in order to create these crop circles. And actually, why don't I just do this for 1 second, because what I'd like to do is just screen share real quick, and then anybody can comment on this. That I think everyone is pretty familiar with this demonstration of cymatics, because it seems to me that this is how it's done. And if you guys know anything more about it, I'm just going to play this for 30 seconds or so. But this shows this. Oh.
Has no characters. If you spare a little of your imagination.
Oh, I've seen this. It's beautiful.
The effect of cymatic frequencies on matter. Everything owes existence solely and completely to sound.
This is phenomenal stuff, and there's more to it than this. And he goes into this Tesla. He puts this chain there.
I'm just going to interrupt. That's really cool, but it has nothing to do with how crop circles are made. Crop circles are made by affecting the biological part of the plant that causes it to grow in a specific bend that creates a pattern on the field. And cymatics has absolutely nothing to do with how that phenomenon occurs. That's really cool. It just has absolutely not a single thing to do with how crop circles are generated or made at all. Two completely different physical relationships with how you're affecting a physical field or a pattern or something loose like water or sand versus how you're specifically telling a plant to grow over, to bend over, to create a pattern across a field. They're just two night and day phenomenon, and I just have to interrupt and say they have nothing to do with each other.
But what's fascinating about it is that you can see that the frequency generates the sacred geometry, the patterns. Yeah, so that's what's fascinating about what this demonstration showed us is, you know, the frequency is geometry. And that's a beautiful way to explain that, because actually Steve, who is usually one of our co-hosts, who is a singer, I've actually listened to him singing where I've actually, you know, like I've actually intuited like certain geometric patterns, like psychically, like I could see them from the resonance of his voice. So it's beautiful how we have to understand energy, and we talked about so many different ways to understand energy today. And this is, I kind of wanted to leave off on this because I love music, of course, and this is a fun way to really kind of see it. You can see the music and you can really see. So there's times when I've actually looked at some sacred geometry patterns, and I was hoping Steve would be here for us to have this conversation, where I've actually put a relationship together between some patterns I've seen in crop circles and some Mozart pieces that I am familiar with. And I can almost see that to me, it's like a strange thing, but I can almost see the song in the geometry. I could hear it like in my head in just looking at the geometry, because I can see the resonant relationship. So, you know, that's what I wanted to, the point I was making. So I was thinking, I was kind of hypothesizing, and wrongly, of course, but it's my theory that possibly this is how they were created. Audrey, did you have any questions, any comments you wanted to make on that? You said you had seen this video.
Oh, yes, I've seen the video. Yes, it is generating sacred geometry here with the audio in resonance to other objects such as the sand grains that they put onto the speakers and the water, the liquid, the fire. There's another part of the video not shown where fire is emitting from some pipe channel. So, yes, sacred geometry is in everything. It's also in your thoughts. It's in your thought patterns. It's in the intentions that you generate. The intentions you send out into the world create a form of sacred geometry in the patterns of that binary code you send. So everything has sacred geometry. Crop circles, though, as Randy was explaining, are created by changes in the growth patterns. This also happens due to frequencies, too.
Well, this is what I was trying to make a connection between what I had discovered and what Duncan was talking about with that whole experiment, that really what came out of these you know, black budget projects and stuff regarding Brookhaven or regarding the Montauk project was that we are connected. We are so connected to this earth and this planet on an electromagnetic level.
We are not just connected to it on an electromagnetic level. We are all made of the same thing. As this entire universe is made from, this whole universe is made from photoradionic waves, frequency, and vibration. So everything is made of the same thing, different quantities, levels, frequencies, densities, combinations.
Right, but the minds of these men who were in this experiment broke. They broke without this connection to these fields, and that's what happened. They tried to study why did these men's minds really break, what happened, and it was because they lost that connection. So I guess they were in hyperspace or whatever, and when you go into hyperspace and, you know, the wormholes, Randy, and traveling, you know, interdimensionally to Mars and all these other things, I mean, I guess they have the physics down so that we don't lose that connection to Earth.
Well, it's a matter of replicating those magnetic frequencies within the vehicles that you're using to travel. It's not a difficult science to do that.
Right, they talk
about...
about...
It's not the only thing that can produce those very same frequencies that these people seem to have become dependent on. So in order to maintain a balance and equilibrium, those magnetic frequencies do need to be present, but at normal levels. You don't want to, let's say, create the scalar wave effect where you're microwaving people.
Right, but Randy was, born on Earth, and he was then, worked on Mars for 17 years as a soldier. How could Randy, how did you do it, Randy? How, without having your Earth frequencies there to support you? How does that?
There's actually technological explanation for that, but I'm going to have to go now. We're past my time, and I'm just being interrupted here, so I'm going to have to go.
Not a
and
problem.
not really be able to give you more of an advanced question than other than to say that we essentially use an artificial field generator. But thank you very much. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Randy, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you'll come back and join us again on the GoldFish Report.
Yep, take care.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Randy.
Okay. I just want to ask you guys for your closing comments, anything that you wanted to finish up with that we either touched upon or something that we didn't cover. So who would like to go next?
The greatest form of energy in this universe is produced through love, truly, unconditional love, high vibration, high frequencies. People need to learn to stop warring on each other. They need to stop hating each other, stop hurting one another. People need to learn to accept everyone as they are, accept everything as it is, because they are all one. All of them are connected. All of these people are made of this very same thing. So warring on each other is warring on themselves. So they need to learn to live in peace. They need to stop hurting one another. If they want to learn to control their chakra systems, learn to control energy, learn to ascend, learn to travel. They want to be free. The key is love in a very big way.
Well, that's so beautiful, because you know what, at the end of every ExoPolitics roundtable discussion we have, love always is what we end up on. It always seems to be the answer to all the different topics that we've covered. And I can't, I can't argue with that. I think, I completely agree with you. And I think Duncan, well, let me just ask Audrey, did you have any other comments that you wanted to make on? We've
I just
so many
wanted to
topics.
get that out to the world.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And I keep seeing a different name on the screen, but I know it's Duncan. Like, why is it confusing me? I'm having this conflict in my head because there's a different name on the screen, and I have to stop and literally think of your name.
You can use the name on the screen too. I use that one too.
It's okay. Duncan, what would you like to leave our viewers with today? If you have really, the most important thing that you really want people to learn and to know.
I would say
about energy.
To start taking responsibility for yourself. Don't give yourself or your power, your energy over to others. Learn to deal with it yourself, and just be good to each other. Start treating each other with mutual respect, and then expand on it from there. I think that would be a start.
And that's just treating people with love too. So, because I know that I missed Susan today, your lovely wife who usually joins you.
Yeah,
that's such a dynamic conversation. But there's really something to be said for that. And I just want to appreciate. I want to tell. I just wanted to thank you both for coming. I want to thank all of our guests, and I want to thank the ambassador and, of course, Randy as well for coming. And, of course, we missed Cobra. We're really sorry we missed Cobra. We don't know exactly what happened with our schedules. We might have had a scheduling mix-up, but we hope Cobra's okay, and that he's not lost. It may be off planet. Who knows where he went, where he is, but we hope he's well, and he'll be back to join us for our GoldFish Report too. And there was a lot to talk about today. Energy is just such a huge topic. We really couldn't do justice, I think, to all of the topics, but we wanted, I think we had an introduction to, different aspects and how it all ties in, and really how we are all part of this planet in such an integral way, that we are so much more powerful than we really know. So I'm really I'm very honored to have such distinguished guests with us today. I'm just so grateful that you were able to join us and for the topics of conversation that we covered. And I wanted to let our viewers know that Audrey does have a show on Wolf Spirit Radio, and Duncan does offer workshops, and I will post links in the description section of this video so that you can learn more about what they're doing. And when there are webinars that come up, we will also post that on our website for your information. And we also like to hear from you. And we want to just thank our viewers, because we look at our Goldfish Report page on YouTube, and we see all the comments that come in, and we really appreciate our viewers to take the time to listen to the videos. It's a lot of time, everybody's busy, but people do listen to them, and we do appreciate your comments. I did contemplate at one point to just turn the comment section off, but I like to connect with people, so for me it's important to hear your comments, and what you got from it, whether it was helpful, whether you liked it, and whether there was something else that you wanted to hear. But also we like to know what you might be seeing around you, and whether you see people, whether there's changes around you, because you're all from different parts of the world. Goldfish Report is posted all over the world. So we have friends in our chat from Africa to Hong Kong to Norway, South America. We're all over the world. So we're reaching an international audience, and we all understand things differently. But we do appreciate your comments, and we appreciate you viewing, subscribing to our channel. Please follow us at thegoldfishreport.com. And this concludes this edition of the Goldfish Report.